The video release shows the BSF neutralizing a Pakistani bunker that was providing covering fire to infiltrating terrorists. Meanwhile, the people of Jammu are grappling with what they saw late last night. If we can turn to those images now, the people of Jammu recorded and filmed sound of explosions and, of course, orange streaks across their skyline, orange fireballs at times, orange streaks across the skyline. This was the Indian air defense system at work, neutralizing and bringing down Pakistan drones and Pakistan missiles. India has repeated, our ambassadors have gone on global networks, that India is not seeking escalation, but if Pakistan continues to do what it has done for the last 2 nights, then India will retaliate and retaliate hard. To talk about where we may go from here, let me introduce our very distinguished panel of experts. We're here on the ground in Jammu, just on the outskirts of Jammu. Jammu was a major target of Pakistan's missiles and drones. The airport came under attack, but that attack was thwarted by a fabulous, very precise Indian air defense system. I want to introduce on the program Commodore Uday Bhaskar. Welcome, sir, to the program, and also veteran diplomat Ambassador Dilip Sinha. I also want to say that this program is not live. Everything that you see on this program has deferred visuals and deferred programming, given the nature, the sensitive nature of ongoing operations. Let me start with you, Ambassador Dilip Sinha, if I may. I'll play out for you in a moment a clip of India's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom going on to global networks, picking up that same image that we saw at our official briefing of how the Pakistan army is attending the funerals of terrorists. But where do we stand right now? When this started, India reaffirmed that we were not seeking escalation. And in Operation Sindoor, India had not targeted military installations or civilian targets. That phase is clearly over. We have India talking about retaliatory action by neutralizing an air defense system in Lahore and targeting other air defense systems and radars in Karachi, Sialkot, and Rawalpindi. If you had to assess where we are now, Ambassador Sinha, how would you describe it?
Well, thanks, Barkha, for having me. Well, one thing is clear, that our air defense system is very strong, has been very effective. And for that, the security forces must be complemented. The only successes Pakistan has had has been in these cross-LOC or cross-border shellings, where some villagers have been killed. Having said that, at the international level, it is quite clear that nobody is buying Pakistan's theory that the terrorists were not involved in this, that the attacks were not on terror camps but on civilians. Because if you look at some of the programs that are being aired there, everybody realizes that the attacks that took place from India were on terror camps. Now, the best defense that Pakistan can claim is that these were no longer terror camps today. But the fact is that these were headquarters of terror camps. And in fact, one program I saw where a Pakistani correspondent says that in Muzaffarabad, one of the mosques attacked, the local people said, well, yes, some of these tanzeems, as they say, did operate here earlier, but they weren't prepared to say they were operating there right now. So this fact has been accepted internationally, which is why most countries are no longer, they are telling both countries to de-escalate. That earlier pressure that used to come on India to try to de-escalate is not exclusively on India. And that is primarily because people realize that the action that India is taking is against terror, for which it is completely justified. And the fact that the big powers seem to have washed their hands of it, and it's only the Saudi ambassador who's now flying down to Islamabad to try and see if he can de-escalate the situation, shows that Pakistan is more or less on its own in this war with India, and it will have to face up to India. And if it wants to escalate the situation, then it will get a response from India in kind.
Before I come to Commodore Bhaskar, since we're on the subject of global response, you seem to be suggesting, Ambassador Sinha, that the world is kind of hands off on this. And we had a very interesting statement from American Vice President J.D. Vance on Fox, and I want to play out that clip. Take a look.
Until we decide that we ultimately can't make any more progress.
And then you would walk away?
We would.
All right. You were in India recently, and there was some feeling that that might lead to one of the trade agreements announced. And we just heard the UK agreement with the United States.
Sure.
How concerned is the administration about the potential for nuclear war between India and Pakistan?
Well, look, we're concerned about any time nuclear powers collide and have a major conflict. What we've said, what Secretary Rubio said, and certainly the president has said, is we want this thing to de-escalate as quickly as possible. We can't control these countries, though. Fundamentally, India has its gripes with Pakistan. Pakistan has responded to India. What we can do is try to encourage these folks to de-escalate a little bit, but we're not going to get involved in the middle of war that's fundamentally none of our business and has nothing to do with America's ability to control it. You know, America can't tell the Indians to lay down their arms. We can't tell the Pakistanis to lay down their arms. And so we're going to continue to pursue this thing through diplomatic channels. Our hope and our expectation is that this is not going to spiral into a broader regional war or, God forbid, a nuclear conflict. But sure, we're worried about these things. But I think the job of diplomacy, but also the job of cooler heads in India and Pakistan, is to make sure this doesn't become a nuclear war. If it happened, of course, it would be disastrous. Right now, we don't think that's going to happen.
All right, let's talk about the U.S. economy, as some of your colleagues are heading to Switzerland to try to work a deal with China. Why was the UK deal first? Is it the sort of the model for other deals? And why not go to the EU?
Right. He went on to other things that don't actually concern us. Before I come to Commodore Uday Bhaskar, Ambassador Sinha, quick take, very briefly.
Yes, that's precisely the point. I think most of these powers realize that India's defense forces are perfectly capable of keeping this situation under control, and that if there is any escalation, India will be able to handle the situation. And this is what gives them the confidence that they should let India handle the situation. India is doing the work that many of these countries would have liked to do to bring into control Pakistan's terror network.
Let me bring in Group Captain Augustine, who is joining us. Thanks, sir, for being with us. Commodore Bhaskar, let me bring you in, Uday Bhaskar. Look, we don't know what India's counterattack has been through last night, and we will get those details. There's a lot of fog of war. We're getting all kinds of contradictory inputs about how the Navy might be used or may have already been used. What we do know on record, and I'm only going to quote that right now, what we do know on record is that India's air defense system yesterday neutralized, an air defense system in Pakistan in Lahore. We know that other locations in Pakistan were targeted, including Karachi, Rawalpindi, and Sialkot. This has been said on record, right? So how do you see this from a military perspective? Sindoor was a tri-service operation. Sindoor is still ongoing, as Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said, and it clearly continues to be a tri-service response. How do you see the situation?
I see the situation, Barkha, as one that is on a steady escalation mode.
I got it, Priya.
This has already been pointed out that if you look at the sequence of Operation Sindoor, from where it began to where we are now, there are two forms of escalation that have taken place. One is in terms of the ordnance that has been delivered, meaning that India had chosen 9 targets in the first phase of the operation. And all of these were linked and identified with the terrorist networks in Pakistan. And India put out a message saying that this is very precise, very measured, a certain degree of restraint, and that the objective is to punish the perpetrators of Pahalgam, April 22, and also preempt another attack, which is what the Indian agencies had picked up. That objective having been achieved from the Indian perspective, the Pakistani response, I would say, increased the geography of the operation as it is unfolding, meaning that if you look at the Pakistani response, they used their assets to attack India all the way from Gujarat to Srinagar in Kashmir, and a number of military assets were deliberately targeted. So India, as you pointed out in the opening remarks, had to respond, and we are now awaiting further detail about what exactly happened. But we do know that based on the ground reports that have come, that India's air defense had worked quite effectively. And you have already made reference to that in very positive terms. But as a military analyst, I would say that what we can discern based on available information in the public domain is that a combination of the S-400 and the Barkha, and I gather even the Akash, and I'm certain most of these details will perhaps be more clear in the official briefing, that in summary, India's air defense was effective, and therefore Pakistan was not able to inflict the kind of damage they thought they would using their combination of drones and other platforms that had been brought into the operation from their side. Now, there's a lot of speculation. There are reports coming both on social media, which I would discount to a certain degree, and from credible media outlets. For instance, I have seen global wire agencies and major American newspapers also making a reference to air assets that have been brought down on both sides. We don't have the fine print on that. Once that is available, we'll have a better sense. But for now, I would say India's air defense has been effective. You also spoke about the Navy. Again, all the reports that we have seen would suggest that India has been able to establish what the jargon refers to as dominance. Dominance in the maritime domain in an as required basis. So we have to, I think, take this a day at a time, or literally a night at a time, and see what kind of responses will follow from Pakistan after the current cycle. Barkha?
Thanks for that, and I think it's very interesting. Escalatory dominance, but where do we go from here? I think that's the critical question. And before I bring in Group Captain Augustine, it's very interesting. We are obviously using global networks now to put our point across. India's ambassador to the USA was on CNN. India's High Commissioner to the UK was on Sky News, and he actually picked up the photograph that shows how Pakistan Army supports terrorists to put it out there on the global stage. I just want to play out that clip for you.
Look, let me show you this photograph of yesterday, I believe it is, to your viewers. This person here is a sanctioned terrorist under the American sanctions regime. His name is Hafiz Abdur Rauf. He's a brother of the founder of the terrorist groups that you're mentioning. Look who's behind him, Pakistani military. Look at the coffins there. They have the Pakistani national flag. If you're going to be giving terrorists state funerals, what does that make of your system? And everybody knows that for the last 30 years, Pakistan has used this as a means of subcritical warfare against India. If the international community really wants to be able to look at this and worry about it, the simple solution is to tell Pakistan it has an opportunity for an off-ramp. These are things that the world should have compelled Pakistan to do 30 years ago, and to compel them to implement their promises about taking down this infrastructure. It has not done so. The logical solution would be, as we've said repeatedly, for Pakistan to take the opportunity of an off-ramp, which we have made abundantly clear, including this morning, that if Pakistan stops attacking our military facilities, the matter ends there. But it is for them to decide.
Group Captain Augustine, the High Commissioner, they're talking about whether Pakistan is going to take an off-ramp. But before we come to an off-ramp, we know that there has been through the night a counter retaliation, and we are awaiting those details from the official briefing that will take place at 5:30 today. So I won't get ahead of that briefing and speculate on what we do. All we can say, because I was up till 3 in the morning, as were many of you. All we can say is that it was once again a tri-service coordinated response, and just like yesterday, we owned what we had done in terms of targeting Pakistan air defense systems and radars. I imagine that there will be some elaboration on what was done through the night. Where do we stand right now? First of all, hats off. I think everybody has made that point to how Pakistan's missiles and drones have been intercepted. But are we now in a phase of drone and missile warfare? And should we also remember that while the battle is taking place in the skies, Group Captain, on the ground, Pakistan was firing artillery shells. Mortar fire has returned to the line of control into the IB, and they were doing this together. And there is now some discussion among experts that if this continues, will ground forces have to be brought in? And that's an open question. Go ahead, Group Captain. What's your analysis?
Barkha, if you look at textbook warfare and the way we fought Kargil or the way we are fighting now, they are in the difference. For simple reason, I am given to understand none of our forces physically crossed neither the line of control nor the IB. So whether you like it or not, we are fighting with the hands tied behind our back for reasons that eventually, when the international diaspora or international people look at us, they look at us that yes, we've did this at every point or at every aspect of operations. We did this all the time, allowing Pakistan to take that off ramp that people are talking about. At every juncture, they had an option of taking that off ramp. Even today, they do. But rogue nation as Pakistan is, I really doubt will they take the off ramp or not, firstly. Secondly, at what point will they realize that they aren't any better than what they are right now? And probably even something is staring down their throat. I mean, I don't want to use those words, but that is a fact, firstly. Secondly, Barkha, that's another important aspect is it is a army heavy armed forces. An army heavy armed force has given a second grade treatment both to its navy and Air Force, and it's become abundantly clear. So whatever money, little money that they get towards the armed forces, most of it is getting probably used towards the army's betterment and army's purchases, and not Air Force. October last year, I talked about in one of the channels how if you disregard your air defense, you might as well hand over the country of yours on a platter to the other country if your air defense is not good. There are 4 aspects to air defense: mass, mix, mobility, and interconnection. interconnectivity. Interconnectivity, I think they are okay. In fact, they had better connectivity between their air defense forces even before us. But mass mix and mobility is something had gaping wounds they didn't have. And
Yeah.
whatever they had, we were able to neutralize it in no time. Imagine in one night, the entire air defense of Lahore fell.
By the way,
takeover-
Group Captain, there was a bizarre statement from Pakistan's Khwaja Asif, and he's been making one bizarre statement after the other. And if you can comment on that briefly, he gave a statement, I think in Pakistan's parliament, if I'm not wrong, saying that the reason that Pakistan did not intercept India's drones is because they didn't want to give away their positions. I mean, it's such a ridiculous, like, I don't know, Khwaja Asif is made of some other material. And ANI is reporting, could I have that banner back, that his elder brother is advising the Prime Minister to ease tensions diplomatically. Nawaz Sharif is advising brother Shehbaz to ease tensions diplomatically. But I just want you to come in on this point that Pakistan was not able to intercept India's drones quickly, and then I want to play out something from the line of control.
Why can't you intercept a drone? You cannot. That is why you shouldn't intercept a drone. Now, if you couldn't intercept a drone, what will you say? No, maine Maria nahi. So, I like to that Khwaja Asif is made of. The entire Pakistan is made of different kind of metal. People who speak sense probably are not at the top level. So that is also a problem in their armed forces.
Yeah. And of course, Asim Munir, we'll talk about him in a moment. I want to now show all of you very dramatic CCTV footage. On CCTV footage, you can show, it captures the moment that a Pakistani shell lands and explodes in Poonch. Poonch has borne the brunt. Poonch is in the Jammu region. Poonch has borne the brunt of shelling from the Pakistani side. And as Pakistan was trying to target areas in India, including Jammu, where I am, Punjab, where I was, Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, and so on. They were also firing from, artillery fire was unleashed at the line of control and the international border. Take a look at this video. I remember Ambassador Sinha being a young reporter, maybe 20 years ago, and seeing this kind of firing at the line of control in the international border. We have mortar fire back, and actually, it's horrific to think of what civilians there have gone through. There are, as our government said, 5 children and 3 women among those who have been killed in this firing. Also, a Gurdwara. A Gurdwara has been damaged. Also, Pakistan took aim at Amritsar, which, as we know, is a holy city for millions of Indians, and the Golden Temple went black during the enforced blackout for the first time in history. I mention all of this, Ambassador Sinha, because Pakistan tried to create a false propaganda that India was targeting mosques, and you brought this up briefly, but actually, it is only places which have been used as shields for terrorists that have been hit, at least in Operation Sindoor. we're now in a different phase of the conflict. You heard Vikram Doraiswamy talk about why doesn't Pakistan take the off-ramp? Do you see any off-ramp opportunity window, or do you think this is going to escalate militarily a lot more before it can get any better? Ambassador Dilip Sinha?
I think that Pakistan has the opportunity to off-ramp anytime, because as Pakistanis claim, they have already downed 6 or 7 of our Rafales. That's victory. So they have won the war. Now they can off-ramp and say, look, we won the war. India tried to attack. We have shot down the aircraft. Now we can sit down and talk. So the opportunity for off-ramping is there, but they know the reality. And in any case, the people in power there are this jihadi army chief and a bunch of jihadis around him. And the photograph that the High Commissioner showed was very telling. These people not bothered about the image that goes out to the world, that here are terrorists who are designated terrorists being seen with the army chiefs. They're quite happy with that. And that is the reason why nobody in the world has actually condemned India's attack. China has made some mild statement. Otherwise, everybody realizes that what India is doing is eradicating these terror camps that have been there, troubling not just India, but the other neighboring countries, Iran and Afghanistan as well, apart from the whole host of Western countries. So Pakistan's narrative is not being read by anybody, and the kind of interviews that correspondent of Sky News has been holding Pakistani High Commissioner and other Pakistani leaders to account. These things didn't happen earlier, not in the Western media, not in the UK media certainly. This is news for me that they are now digging in and saying that India had offered talks and investigation to them after 2016, after 2018, when Pulwama and Uri took place, and Pakistan did not respond. And these are questions being asked by the British correspondent. So,
and you're not overly concerned about China's little noises. Turkey's rather big embrace of Pakistan. You're saying by and large, while the world will offer that kind of piecemeal, set piece statements about restraint in nuclear warfare, by and large, India's hands will not be tied by the world. Is that your sense? Or will there be a kind of push to de-escalate?
At the moment, no, because all the 3 big powers today are busy with their own wars. China is busy with Taiwan and South China Sea. Russia is busy with Ukraine. America is busy with a host of things. So none of these countries has the time to devote to India and Pakistan. So that's why, which is, I said, Saudi Arabia is the only country that is trying to do something, primarily because if Pakistan's economy goes further down the drain, they will go with the begging bowl to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia will have to bear the brunt of the financial collapse of Pakistan, which will take place no matter which way the war goes. Pakistan's economy will become further weak. So I don't think, unless Pakistan's attacks on India come to a point where they penetrate our defenses and cause further civilian casualties that outrage us, then all bets are off. But if that doesn't happen, and if our air defenses hold, and they are able to keep off the Pakistani continuous assault of these assaults, then I think we'll be able to control the situation. The firings on the LOC, the people from the LOC are withdrawing. They're coming back. I believe in Srinagar, there's a whole lot of people who have come down from the close to the border in the LOC. So
we've been reporting that.
Yes, so that is our civilians will withdraw from the artillery shelling area, and that will mean that further civilian casualties will not take place in India unless, of course, as I said, they are able to penetrate our air defenses.
So let me take that question to our 2 military panelists. Commander Bhaskar, what's your sense? You see, what Pakistan tried to do and was thwarted in doing was basically attack our airports and our airfields, right? Jammu Airport, airfield in Jaisalmer, even flying a drone over the Northern Army Command headquarters in Udhampur, Avantipura, that's in the Kashmir Valley, and multiple cities in Punjab. And I mentioned this because I think Pakistan can't get over the fact that Indian missiles struck in their part of Punjab, which dominates their military, their wealth, their politics, everything, right? Do you Do you share Ambassador Dileep Sinha's sense that if air defense holds, perhaps this won't grow further? Or do you think it all depends on A, what India has done in the last 24 hours and what Pakistan does after that?
Barkha, my brief response in the first round is to say that from the Pakistani perspective, their planning seems to be that they would like to blunt India's trans-border military capability because they are vulnerable to India's trans-border military strikes, and we saw this in Balakot. So from that experience, and given the fact that immediately after Pahalgam massacre, the terrorist massacre on April 22nd, they had enough time to prepare, they focused on trying to blunt and degrade India's trans-border military capability, which is a combination of assets. In this spectrum, the fixed assets or those that on the ground are the airfields. So this seems to be part of Pakistan's strategic thought, if you go back even to the 1965 war and subsequently, that to try and target Indian airfields and the assets over there. That to me seems to be a replay of a certain Pakistani assessment of India. But clearly they were not successful because of the air defenses and the fact that they were able to blunt it. But I agree with what Dilip, Ambassador Sinha, is saying, that if India does not sustain any serious damage in terms of civilian population or infrastructure, then there is a window for the off-ramp that is being suggested. But before we get there, Barkha, can I just add one point to what Vikram, our High Commissioner in London, Doraiswamy, had made in terms of Pakistan, the terror network, and the global perception. If you reel back to February 2002, and that's a period I'm sure that you would remember very well, we had the tragic case of Daniel Pearl, the correspondent of the Wall Street Journal, who, as it happened, was posted in Mumbai. Some of us had interacted with him, and he had gone to Pakistan. And why I'm recalling Daniel Pearl is that I'm sure that your program would also be seen outside of India by those, what you might call as doubting Thomases, who have raised this question about Pakistan and its links to terrorism. It is not Pahalgam. It is not Pulwama. It is not Uri. It is not Mumbai 2008. You can go back to the mid-90s when we had Prime Minister Narasimha Rao in India and the decade that followed. And that is when this American journalist Daniel Pearl in February 2002 had gone to Karachi and all of that. And
We
he
have him
was
up.
by
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Bahawalpur and Muridke. That is the network. So I think for India, anyone who asks this question for the international community, you just have to reel back to Daniel Pearl and how he was targeted and killed by the same cadres who were nurtured in this combine of Bahawalpur, Muridke, etc. So that having been said, I think now the ball is totally in Pakistan's court, particularly General Munir and the corps commanders. If they choose to go down the escalatory path, then I think India would have to respond. This has been stated by the Prime Minister, by the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, and all those who have spoken on behalf of India about the next steps. Were that to happen, we have a conventional ladder. I would say that we are at step 2 now. We would definitely move to step 3 because India has other capabilities in terms of being able to deliver ordnance and respond to whatever Pakistan brings to the table. It's tragic. We just spoke about people being killed on this side of the border. We have seen the tragic pictures from Poonch and other areas where women and children have been killed. I dare say there are similar pictures in Pakistan. So I think this is a cycle that we would have to be prepared for in India, definitely. And Pakistan would also have to face the consequences, which I repeat is tragic.
Before I come to Group Captain, I'm glad you brought up Daniel Pearl, and I'm just going to explain a little more context for people who don't follow what we follow closely. Among those reported to have been killed in India's missile strikes is a terrorist called Rauf Azhar. Rauf Azhar was the operational head of the Jaish-e-Mohammed when IC-814 was hijacked. When IC-814 was hijacked in 1999, India was compelled to release 3 terrorists, Masood Azhar, Mushtaq Zargar, and Omar Saeed Sheikh, a British-born Pakistani national. Omar Saeed is a terrorist who then goes and heads Daniel Pearl, whose image you see on your screen. And that is the linkage that Commodore Bhaskar you brought up. But I just wanted to tell it in a simple way for our audience who may not know that story. So those are the targets that were hit in Operation Sindoor. And a lot of the global media I saw was covering the Daniel Pearl story that could justice have finally been served. Well, I should say Omar Saeed Sheikh was acquitted. What's really shocking is I was researching this yesterday, and Omar Saeed Sheikh was acquitted by Pakistan's Supreme Court. And I am told that he is in a safe house in Pakistan. So the terrorist whom India had to release from Tihar jail because Masood Azhar's brother hijacked a plane and made that demand, and we had to do it to ensure the safety of our passengers. That's the link that the world needs to know about. Now to come to Group Captain Augustine on, I think the question and the points made by both Ambassador Sinha and Commodore Bhaskar. If air defense holds, if nothing more happens on the ground, could there be an off-ramp, or will there be an escalation? We don't know. What is your take? We unmute Group Captain, please.
Yeah, my take is different, Barkha. Unless boots on the ground and we capture some territory, or I mean, currently the losses on Pakistani side, I don't think is adequate enough for them to, come crying. Will they take an easy off ramp? I really doubt it. I have my serious doubt. We have to have something substantial in our hand, to make them to come and discuss on the table. Do we have substantial something in our hand is a very big question that needs answering. There are a few rumors like Ambassador talked about and all that. If they are true, probably we have. If that is not true, then we don't have. That's what I was, talking to somebody. We have taken out the complete air defense of Sialkot. We have taken out the complete air defense of Lahore. If we put boots on the ground, at least up to the outskirts of Lahore, which I believe is not very far away, from the borders of Amritsar, probably there could be on the thing of talking, and they will probably take that off. Currently,
you're suggesting a ground incursion,
ground offensive for
a ground offensive,
limited ground offensive. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. In the limited ground offensive scenario, there will be, and especially Lahore being close to their heart, there could be, there is a possibility that they'll probably come on the table, go towards the side of peace. Another reason why I think they might is they are, that FATF grey list and blacklist is lurking on their head. And secondly, IMF loan bailout is also on the cards. And that also is timed around the same time. So that leverage also is something that India has. And, the IMF had met the people of India, and I believe he's an Indian origin person. That also may play up or may have some effect. That also we need to wait and watch as it unfolds.
Military question, and I need to start taking last comments. So I'll start with you, Group Captain, since you made this point about a limited ground offense. The thing about limited ground offenses is that they can spiral into long-term limited wars. It can't necessarily be calibrated exactly. So I want your response to that. And by the way, there was also a drill in the heart of the capital, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. But please respond to what I've asked.
Limited offensive, absolutely right. It can spiral into a much bigger conflict. Unless it is not, in narrative stitched correctly. Not that in the past limited offensives have not happened, and not that in the past limited offensive QPQ options were not given and not taken. In fact, in the history of war with India and Pakistan, QPQ options were all the time exercised. So I think it will be a good idea to put boots on the ground. Without boots on the ground, I don't know whether Asim Munir will relent or take the off-ramp.
Let's get reactions to that. In the meantime, we do have some updates on what happened last night. I'd just like to read them out. These are officials speaking to ANI. Around 500 drones were launched towards Indian positions by the Pakistan Army last night, which was sighted at 24 locations from the Siachen base camp in Ladakh to the Kutch area in Gujarat. This is very important. Could we have these updates also on our screen? Around 50 of these drones were destroyed by air defense guns, while around 20 were brought down through soft kills. Most of the drones were unarmed. The drones were fitted with cameras and possibly relaying footage to their ground stations. The Indian air defense systems took out almost all the drones which could have caused damage to infrastructure. So what we're looking at is 500 drones from Pakistan launched towards positions, 24 locations from Siachen in Ladakh to Kutch area in Gujarat. That is the scale. But 50 were destroyed by air defense guns, while 20 were brought down by soft kills. Most of the drones were unarmed. Could someone explain this for people who are not from the military, Commodore?
Basically, Barkha, we have seen that drones have become platforms of first choice in modern warfare in recent years. The best example is what we have seen in the Russia-Ukraine war. And for the record, drones have been used by both sides in tens of thousands. And the production of drones, I saw some figures, are in the million, meaning that Ukraine has ramped up, so has Russia. They also have suppliers. So that's the kind of numbers we are talking about. And they come in different shapes, sizes, and they have different roles. From what you have just read out from that official statement given to ANI, it's evident that the first tranche or the first set of drones that came across were perhaps used for surveillance. I underline the word perhaps because this is a tactical situation. One does not have all the details. But the larger point is the drone is now a platform which is preferred because of the new technologies that are incorporated in it and the kind of military capabilities it can give you in actual combat. Now, the primary arms of combat, one is surveillance, that gives you intelligence, and the second is the ability to deliver ordnance. So there are some drones that also carry ordnance. Those are armed drones. So at the moment, one doesn't know the disaggregation, but my sense is that in the first round, they would have used them at different locations to try and get adequate surveillance and then be able to relay that back so that the ordnance could accordingly be sent to specified targets. But this having been said, I think we have to really go back and see as to how this war is going to be pursued at the political level in India for sure. Because in India, it's a political decision about, I just heard the Air Force colleague, Group Captain Augustine, talk about perhaps move towards Lahore. Now, that's a very big step. It's a very major decision to say that the Indian Army or the Indian military will march towards Lahore in an offensive move. That would also not only widen the scope of the war, but also the texture of the war. This shows a certain political resolve by India, which means that we would also have to have Plan B, Plan C, Plan D about various exigencies. By the way, this is not the first time. You have to go back to Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri in 1965. Indian military, the Indian Army, was on the outskirts of Lahore. There are some celebrated regimental kind of battles that took place. So we have done it in the past. But were that to be done, we are moving up in a very rapid and a visible manner. And here I want to offer a slightly differing perception from what has been said till now. My sense is Pakistan will then go back to the red lines that it has often told the world about as far as its nuclear capability is concerned. There are 4 exigencies in which Rawalpindi has said that it would invoke the nuclear capability. One of them is a kind of Lahore scenario. Were that to happen, all the major powers in their own way, I think, would not just reach out, but at one level compel India. I don't think we should get too carried away that as a nuclear-armed country, that we will not elicit responses of varying degree from the international community. But I'll leave it there. I think you have the 5:30 conference ready to come.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes to keep going. It hasn't started yet. Group Captain, I know you'll want to respond to that, but before you come to that, images have now officially been released of drone parts that were recovered after they were shot down by the Indian air defense systems last night. Could we just go back? Because this just says metal container case. Yeah, there. So we have this. Do you want to just comment on what we know about the 500 drones? Most of them unarmed, some, probably many for surveillance. And, tough for a layperson to understand what's actually going on. Nature of warfare is clearly changing. That's for sure. Could we unmute Group Captain, please?
Barkha, what we see here is a drone called DJI Mavic Pro 3. I mean, since we have a company and we deal with them every day, and like I told you last night, as we speak, the other Varsha is there handing over some parts. And these are those bomb release mechanism, which is a makeshift mechanism, which you can make it in outskirts of Lahore and fit it onto this particular drone. Like these, many drones have come and intercepted. The good part about intercepting a DJI drone is very simple to intercept, very simple to bring them down. Because they continuously have a data link between the master, that is the guy who controls it, and the drone. And they have a limited range of 3 to 6 kilometers, at best 7 kilometers. So these are off the shelf available, or probably China has given them for free, because these were used, like Commodore said, in the Ukraine-Russia war a lot, this particular drone. And if you look at the nose of the drone, it has 3 sensors, and one of them is thermal, which means it is night capable. Whether you have your lights on or not, the ones you see on the nose, the bottom one is the thermal sensor. So whether your light is on or not, these drones are pretty capable to pick up the location, come on top of that location and drop a bomb. Most of it has been brought down. These are not the drones probably you should be worried about. You should be worried about the ones which I believe has been handed over to them and to be used at the right moment from Turkey. Those are the drones I will be worried about, because those are really slightly on the bigger side. They are kamikaze, and they have a capability to inflict damage. And I believe even some of them have been brought down. I also have seen pictures of PL5, the missiles that either fell short or jammed, and nearly intact, available with us for us to do the forensics to understand the technology behind PL5. So a lot of such great things have happened. Once again, I say this and take a leaf from Commodore, is that unless you have something substantial, I don't think Barkha Munir is going to come on the table and talk to you or talk peace or take off ramp. Impossible. That man is not cut out that way. It has to be much more than what we have done, and has to be a piece of land, I think.
Let me give the last word to Ambassador Sinha, because on one of our previous programs, you were saying that the end goal has to change. Maybe India has to embrace, I think you said it, please correct me if I'm wrong, let's say the Baluchistan cause more openly. There has to be something that gives. And while, let me try and find a middle path between what Commodore is saying and what the Captain is saying. I think my question would be, India has demonstrated capacity, capability, resolve with Operation Sindoor. But because the adversary isn't playing fair, because the adversary's choice of weapon is asymmetric, I think what Group Captain is raising, and Commodore, I want you to think about that also, is that 1 month down the line, he could try another terror attack. He could, right? So something has to be there in terms of an end goal. And that's the last word I want to give you, Ambassador Sinha, because otherwise we'll be in this loop constantly. If Pakistan doesn't stop sending terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir and sometimes even other parts of India, we will be in this moment again. Ambassador Sinha.
Yeah, I'm afraid you are right, Barkha. The nature of Pakistan is such that it will continue to work exactly in the kind of cycle that you have mentioned. Now, our success in this operation so far has been that our strikes have been very clinical, very targeted, very precise, with the result that the world itself has been able to keep its not be too worried about it, because there are not too many civilian casualties. Pakistan is not going around showing photographs of civilians killed. That is our great success in this operation so far, and we should not lose that. Um, if we put troops on the ground, I'm afraid, as Commodore Bhaskar said, we would be escalating the matter further. One, we'd be taking the risk of further casualties on our side, because once there is ground warfare, there will be casualties on our side, and I don't see any reason why we should lose troops unnecessarily. If we have aerial superiority, we might as well use that to keep sustained pressure on Pakistan. I agree with Group Captain Augustine that Pakistan is unlikely to come to the negotiating table unless it is completely down and out. Now, that is extremely difficult for us to bring about unless, and there I come back to the point about what I said the other day. I think I was very clear in my mind that Pakistan has to be pressured in a different way. And that is that Pakistan has very successfully sold the narrative to the world that Kashmir is somehow a disputed territory and that it is a leftover of the partition. And India is repressing the people of Kashmir, and that is why there is a terrorist movement, a freedom movement taking place in Kashmir. And all the terrorist acts that take place in India are because of that freedom movement. Now, that narrative has to change. Our youngsters do not know that when the partition took place, it was a very, very tragic thing to have happened. And Kashmir was not the only disputed territory. Balochistan was far more disputed than Kashmir was. In fact, Balochistan wanted to join India. It made an appeal. The brother of the Khan of Kalak went to Kabul and he appealed to India that they wanted to join India, and we turned it down. So if we have to go back and revise our own understanding of history, Pakistanis live the partition every day, whereas our younger generation has gone ahead, they have forgotten. They want to move ahead, but Pakistan will not let us move ahead. So I think we have to then remind Pakistan that there are other disputed territories, disputed issues with regard to the partition. The plebiscite held in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was a fraud. It was a province under Congress rule, and the British held a plebiscite to decide the fate of the frontier province, and only 11% people voted because the Congress boycotted the plebiscite. Now, these are all things that our people don't know about, and they think that Kashmir is the only disputed issue of the partition that needs to be resolved. Now, if Pakistan insists upon doing this, then I suppose old-timers like me have to be brought back and told that, to be reminded that this is not the story.
Yeah, I think that the coyness about questioning, as you said, the accession of Balochistan, or the decision by Balochistan to be part of Pakistan is basically what you're questioning. We will leave it there because the MEA briefing is going to start, and I think it's going to be very critical in understanding what exactly has happened in the last many hours. Group Captain Augustine, Ambassador Dilip Sinha, earlier to Commodore Bhaskar, I'm sure we'll be able to reconnect with you again in the near future. In the meantime, thank you for watching. We're here on the ground in Jammu, and we will continue to report from the ground on all that is happening, not just on Operation Sindoor, but Pakistan's attempts to target Indian airports and airfields in Indian cities. Attempts that have been successfully thwarted by an impeccable air defense system of our country. Thank you, gentlemen, and to our audience. See you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Voter Story and support independent, robust journalism.